Suisui is coming soon, but with the reveal of Qingxiao and Jingren for the next version, is she actually worth getting? That's what I'm going to be discussing in today's video. And when it comes to positives for Suisui, the first thing I have to mention is that she is going to be the new best in slot character for two of the best DPSs in the entire game. Those two DPSs are obviously Hiyuki and Yang Yang Xuanling. Hiyuki and Yang Yang Xuanling are already some of the best DPSs in the game, and now Suisui is swooping in, becoming one of the most crucial aspects to their team building. And this is for a variety of reasons, because Suisui has a ton of different effects at her disposal, her biggest being from her ultimate. She's able to increase the amount of negative status cap for every negative status except Havoc Bane by 3, much like a Chisa Ultra skill. However, Havoc Bane gets a different effect. Whenever Havoc Bane is consumed, which, reminder, Yang Yang Xuanling can do via her Forte skill, that character will gain 12% Havoc Resistance Ignore and 6% Defense Ignore. Havoc Resistance Ignore is one of the most powerful effects in the entire game, to the point where every single character who has access to some form of Resistance Ignore has ended up becoming an incredibly strong unit. Lupa gives 15% to the team, and Shikona with her signature weapon can reduce arrow resistance by 10%, and both of these characters have ended up becoming some staples within their elements. So now Suisui is able to give Havoc Resistance Ignore to Yang Yang, which is a ridiculously strong damage increase. Now obviously, the stat cap increase would have also been very good, but that's what Chisa is here for, because the best in slot team is going to end up being Chisa and Suisui. Now additionally, she also has a very packed Ultra skill, giving 25% damage amplification, 12% damage bonus, and whenever you consume a negative status directly with an ability, which Hiyuki and Xuanling can both do, they will gain 50% attack. 50% attack is a ridiculous amount of stats, so yeah, Suisui is going to end up becoming vital for both of these characters. Although she isn't necessary, she's definitely going to be the best option. I'd even dare say that she is going to be the most important character in each of these characters' teams. Another big positive for Suisui is that she's going to essentially function like a second Chisa. Now what do I mean by saying that she functions like a second Chisa? Well, she's going to be an all-rounder support for every single negative status team. So instead of making a dedicated third slot character like they've been doing with other teams, negative status is simply going to be getting a bunch of universal characters like Suisui and Chisa that allow you to mix and match them as you see fit. A lot of people have been complaining that their Chisa is becoming ridiculously overworked, and even though part of that is definitely self-inflicted, I can 100% see where they're coming from. There's a bunch of negative status teams now, and it looks like almost all of them have Chisa as their best in slot. Cardathea wants to use Chisa, Imeth Fusion Burst wants to use Chisa, Hiyuki wants to use Chisa, and Yang Yang Xuanling also does. And while there definitely is something you can do about this, like running Arrow Rover with Cardathea, and then running Imeth in Tune Rupture mode, Suisui's addition is still incredibly helpful. Especially when we're looking at Tower of Adversity and Whimpering Wastes. Matrix currently gives Chisa a second vigor, so it's not as pressing. However, Tower of Adversity and Whimpering Wastes do not have the luxury of letting you use Chisa again. So Suisui still helps lighten the burden in 2 of the 3 endgame modes, and even then, this additional vigor that Chisa is getting in Matrix might not even be permanent. So Suisui is definitely going to be incredibly important when it comes to accounts that have a ton of investment into negative status. Even for Cardathea and Fusion Burst Imeth, Suisui still manages to find some relevance. Obviously, she's not going to be the best in slot for them the way she is for Hiyuki and Yang Yang, because Chisa is still going to be better in these teams. However, that does not diminish the fact that Suisui is still a usable alternative, which is something that I immensely value. And the more investment you have into your Imeth, the smaller the gap between Suisui and Chisa becomes. Simply by getting S1 Suisui, you will also immediately make Suisui better than Chisa within an Imeth team. For Cardathea, Suisui is definitely less usable, mainly because she's actually worse than Arrow Rover, meaning that you not only have Chisa to deal with if you want to use Suisui with Cardathea, Arrow Rover would also just be a better option. And this time, Suisui's S1 can't help you either, mainly because Cardathea is not attack scaling. So even if you get S1 Suisui, she's still not going to be a Cardathea buff. But it's about the thought of getting another alternative. Your Rover could be busy with your Zani, and you could just not own Chisa, or your Chisa could be busy with other negative status teams. Now obviously I would recommend having Suisui with the Imeth, and then putting Chisa with Cardathea, but again, it's the thought that counts. Especially if you don't have Chisa, you can use Suisui with Cardathea, and then you can run something like Lupa with your Imeth. So while it's definitely less practical than using Suisui with her two intended teammates, I don't think these two synergies should be entirely written off. However, it's not all sunshines and rainbows, and Suisui definitely is not a perfect character. So let's start with the first con. She doesn't increase the cap for Havoc Bane. Now is this a big deal? In my opinion, absolutely not. Mainly because the sheer stats that Suisui gives to Yang Yang definitely trumps the increasing of the cap that Chisa can do, to the point where Suisui is actually more important for Yang Yang than Chisa is. But it's definitely still something worth noting, because instead of just using one of the two, her best team uses both Chisa and Suisui. Because Yang Yang still does care about increasing the cap for Havoc Bane, thanks to her inherent skill that increases damage amplification to targets based on their amount of Havoc Bane stacks. So it's definitely not an irrelevant bit of synergy, and the fact that Suisui is lacking it definitely does harm her synergy with her sister a bit. Now I do want to clarify that this is definitely more of a nitpick than I'm making it sound, because like I said earlier, Suisui is definitely more important to Yang Yang than Chisa is, but it's still something worth noting, because Chisa is still used in the Yang Yang team optimally purely because Suisui is lacking this little bit of synergy. And then for my second point, she doesn't have any sort of meaningful buffs to Zani. Zani has been here, waiting for literally any sort of upscale or buff from the negative status meta, and has gotten absolutely nothing. She doesn't inflict any negative status herself, and neither of the supposed universal negative status characters have any sort of buff to Zani. Well, technically they do, but neither of them are actually better than just running Shorekeeper. So yeah, if you are a desperate Zani main trying to make her better, you're definitely going to be disappointed here. Zani remains as an absolute quick swap merchant who needs triple Nightfall if she wants to look impressive in any sort of capacity. And Suisui is not changing this in any capacity, not even by a little bit. But those are just my thoughts on Suisui. Let me know what you think of her down in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, be sure to join my Discord server, which is linked down in the description. But that'll be all from me. Peace.